Okay, so welcome. I think we still have some students that are going to join a little bit, but let's go ahead and get started, and I'll be recording this in case anyone needs to watch it later. But I wanted to finish up on what we started last week, which was to get you ready for the project due in a week from today. So the first project. Okay, so the first project, Project One, is due next Friday. So that's Friday, September 15th. So a week from tomorrow. Okay. And so the goal today is to get everyone set for finishing the data analysis and finishing up the paper for the project. So kind of pick where we left off, but if you have any questions or need me to repeat anything from last week, I can also do that. Hello? Okay, so I think both of you were here last week, and I think we have some more students coming. But I introduced the project last week. The project's due September 15th, which is a week from tomorrow. And so what you're going to do is write a short little research paper, about 5 pages, and you're going to write it about a capital asset pricing model and an arbitrage pricing theory model as well. And you're going to pick two stocks, perform a little analysis, and I was trying to walk the question. Can you turn your sound on? Yeah, I think you're on if you want to talk. Uh, did you have a question? Okay. I guess we'll keep going. So I'm gonna put you on mute. Then if you have a question, just let me know. But oh,
Yeah,
there you go. Okay.
get it.
Okay. Do you have a question?
No, I could check it right now at this moment right now, but I might have it because I get the project for 15 June. Yeah. So is there any time like office hour, or I can send email to you and then you can email back when your convenient time, right?
Yeah. You can we can schedule office hours, and I can go over some stuff with you then.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah. So let me know when you're ready to have your project or your analysis looked at, and then
Okay.
we can schedule a quick office hours.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right.
Okay. You
Yeah.
can hear me okay?
Yeah, we're good right now. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
I'm gonna mute myself. Yeah. So they listen. Yeah. So yeah, last week like I couldn't find those all the buttons, all the disappear, so that I cannot feedback to you. That's why. Yeah.
You couldn't find the what?
All the buttons that mute or speak or any buttons, all the disappear. So I join with the web. I cannot join with the app. So like I do the web browser and I join with that one. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
So
App doesn't work. Yeah. I don't know why. Yeah.
okay. But you were
Yeah.
able to see the video from last time.
Yes, yeah, I can see the video, but I cannot feedback to you. I cannot speak or anything that. So kind of
Okay.
get muted,
Okay.
and then you talking about yourself, something like that. So yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
But
Yeah,
you can now. All right.
all right, thank you. Yeah, all
Okay.
right.
All right. So we were going through some examples, and I was going to walk you through my example, and then you could repeat the analysis with your project of choice. So I was going through, this is where I left off, and I was using uh, the Johnson and Johnson and the Pfizer is my example. And so the goal here is to pick your own two stocks to analyze and do the analysis of both. So both of you, let me just type this here. Yes, that's correct. Okay, so there's only two of you here, but I'll just yeah. So I emailed the link last week, and I'll put it here as well. Okay, so that should take you to the link. There you go, and then I'll have last week's video and today's if you want to see that. So just to catch up here, so there's only two students right now. But do both of you have both of you chosen stocks that you want to use for project one? You can either post to the chat or I just want to make sure that you're on your way to choosing some data so you can analyze and do project one. So do both of you have um, topics or stocks for this project? Okay, so Lockheed Martin. Okay, that's great. And then do you have another one? Okay, great. And then how about uh, Jin? Jin Wang, do you have stocks that you want to choose? Yeah, there's the video again, the video link. Oh, great. Okay, so GM, Chevy. Okay, perfect. You're welcome. So you both have link to the videos, and then you both have topics, so that's great. I assume you know how to find your data. Just to clarify, you would go to Yahoo Finance. You can search probably through those companies. Let's see. So Lockheed Martin would be LMT. Uh, North Northrop Grumman would be NOC. Um, General Motors would be GM. And I think that Chevrolet is part of General Motors. So you might want to choose a separate company like Ford, or something to go with GM, because I'm pretty sure that Chevrolet is part of General Motors, and not a separate company. So if you want to do General Motors, GM, and Ford, do something like that, you can do those two and compare those two. That Okay, there you go. Yeah. So all right. So there's your stocks. Uh, General Motors and Ford, and Lockheed Martin, and Northrop. Okay, and you can find them there. So I showed you last time how to get stocks, put them into your spreadsheet. So here's where we left off last time, where I had data from July 2001 up to around August 2001, sorry, 2023. And I was showing you how to get the other variables. So last week we got, or I got examples of the S&P. The two stocks I was using as an example, which are Pfizer and Johnson and Johnson. And then I also got you uh, the 1 month risk-free treasury bond return. And that way you could get the excess returns. You can get the returns of both the stocks, and then you can get the excess returns in excess of the risk-free rate. So that's where we got last time. And I think all the parts that I highlighted in green, that's where we left off. So you should be able to get up to this point um, as last video. Okay. So are both of you okay getting up to this point? We left off last week. Okay. So if you're not, you can let me know. And like I said, I could also schedule. Okay, you need to review again. Okay. So everything up to this point is in last week's video. Then we'll continue here. And then if you need additional help, let me know and we can do separate office hours. But you'll be able to get up to this point with your two stocks based on last week's video. Okay. And this one will get you through the rest. So we did we set up our spreadsheet, right? And we did the S&P. I did one of my stocks, Pfizer, the other stock, Johnson and Johnson, and then I did this GS1M, which is the risk-free return from the U.S. government for 1 month, and then we were in the process of getting returns and excess returns. Okay, so to get, I think I left off here because it looks like I haven't got there yet. But this is just going to be take the continuously compounded returns, Pfizer. So starting here, let me do it for you. So you got to have at least two observations to have a return. So you would start in 2001 August, which is in F3. You would type in equals natural log of E3 divided by E2 times 100. That's the natural log of August divided by July. And so you're getting the returns log form, right? And I'll give you, for this one, it's like a negative return because it went down. Right? So there's your simple formula. Then you can apply that to all the other, Excel will just do the same formula and give you the continuously compounded return for each successive observation. If you just grab the bottom right corner and kind of drag it down like this, all the way to there. Right? All right, so this part. And as of now, I'm stopping in July because it isn't, all the variables don't go that far. So as of now, I might have to cut off a little bit more. We're doing July 2001 to July 2023. Okay, and then to get the excess returns for one of your stocks, in this case, I'm using Pfizer, right? I would start here with my first return, and I would the excess return over the risk-free rate. So for this one, it's F3 minus K3 because in August, there's the return. It's negative, but it'll even out. And here's the risk-free rate. So what do I get excess the risk-free rate? Because I get this for sure, it's risk-free. And what do I get in excess? It's that minus that. Right, and you can just apply that same formula. Simple one equals F3 minus K3. Okay, apply that down the ER, EFE, or the ER excess return to your stock. So we got this one. Okay, then let's just do the same for returns of Johnson & Johnson, the same formula. Okay, so starting in I3, it's going to be the newer return over the older return, so equals the natural log of H3 divided by H2 times 100. That's our continually compounded return from July to August 2001, and then just apply the same return formula all the way down like this. Okay, and then to get the excess return, same deal as last time. Starting in J3, it's the return excess of the risk-free rate, so uh, I3 minus K3. And then apply that one down. Okay, so at this point, you should have, sorry, date column, the S&P, the returns of the S&P, the excess returns of the S&P. One of your stocks return the excess returns, the other stock returns excess returns, and then this is the risk-free return on a government bond. You have everything you need for the CAPM. Now I'm going to show you how to get the rest of the macro variables, to do the capital asset or the arbitrage pricing theory. Okay. So what I wanted you to use, remember we did the little example and there was a bunch of macro variables and we're looking at unexpected changes. I kind of simplified to some important macro variables to see if they had some influence on your stock variables. And so you're welcome to use the same exact macro variables I'm using. If you want to try something else, that's up to you. I'm going to use unexpected changes in inflation, unexpected changes in the money supply, and then unexpected changes in home inflation, and then see if any of those have an influence in predicting stock prices, in addition to just the S&P index. Now, so to get the consumer price index, I'm a space here. You're going to go under Project 1 on Blackboard. And then here's the Federal Reserve economic data. And that's got all these macro variables for free. So if you search for the CPI, any of these are fine as long as it's monthly. So here's the percent change from a year ago monthly, seasonally adjusted. That sounds like a good indicator of prices. So I'm going to click on this. Okay, so this is monthly consumer price index, and we're going to get that, and then we're going to calculate inflation, then changes inflation, which will be the proxy unexpected changes in inflation. You can change the date range, what you want. I'm just going to hit the max button here. I'm just going to download it and then take the data I want, put it into the spreadsheet. Okay, so max and download. You can do it Excel. So here we go. This is sticky price consumer price index. So that takes away energy. So this is the sticky price index. Okay? And we can look at how that changes over time. Let's see one thing real quick. This is, oh, sorry, this is actually the percent change. And you can use that to save a step. But the way I set up the spreadsheet, I wanted to get the consumer price index, the index number, then get the change, and then get the unexpected changes. So let me try this one more time. So you go here, search for CPI. Um, this is the one I would like to use because it's an index, not already in percentages. So instead of the sticky price consumer price index, you can actually use that one, but then you already have percent changes. You gotta do it a bit differently. But the way I set up the example, I click on this one, consumer price index for all urban consumers, all items in US city average. Okay, so this is the one I want. I'm gonna hit max and get rid of this one. Okay, so consumer price index, see how the index is in the base year is 100, then prices of indices above the base index are bigger than 100, indices below or less than. All right, so we can calculate the percent change of this overall price index, which would in fact be inflation. Okay, so max, download, Excel. Okay, so we've got the consumer price index, which is what I wanted, where the base year is 82 to 84. So we want dates 7/1/2001 or July up to current observation. So let's start there. We don't need this older stuff. Okay, 7/1/2001. Copy and paste all that from here to the current observation. Okay, and we should have the consumer price index from 7/1/2001 to 7/1/2023. Okay, so it should be the same. Yeah, see, it's the same range. Okay, so we got consumer price index, which starts at like 177 and prices gradually get higher. This is consumer price index for each of our observations. So all you did here was copy and paste the appropriate range consumer price index. And remember, if your date range is different, like if your stock doesn't go back to 2001 or it's newer, or you have more data, make sure all your variables have the same amount of observations at the same date range. Okay, but I'm working with starting at 7/1/2001. So we got the CPI. Okay, and to get inflation, oops, sorry, one second. Okay, so you need at least two indices to get an inflation. So the percent change in prices is inflation. So when the prices go up a little bit, that's inflation. Right? So all you got to do is take continuously compounded returns, the consumer price index from 1 month to the next. In MB, that's equals natural log L2, L3 divided by L2 times 100. Okay, and you can apply that down and get inflation each month. There you go. And you know what? I'm going to take away the since not all of our data goes up to August. Um, we can't use August if we don't have all the variables go up there. So I'm going to just take this stuff away because we have August. So as of now, my date range ends July 2023. Might have to cut back a little bit if some of these other observations don't go that high, but as of now, that's what we got. Okay, and then de-inflation, the change in inflation, which would be the proxy for unexpected changes in inflation, because we're assuming that all changes are unexpected in this context. So starting in N4, you got to have at least two inflations to do a change in inflations. Starting at N4, equation is equals M4 minus M3, it's just the change. So if this is the new one, this is the old one, then the difference, any change we assume is unexpected because we didn't expect any changes. So this is inflation, changes in inflation, and you can apply that down to the bottom. Okay, so we got this one. Okay, so you get the CPI data from Federal Reserve economic data set. Calculate inflation by just looking at the continuously compounded return. The change in inflation is the change in inflation from just the difference from one year to the next. Okay. Now let's get the money supply data from the Federal Reserve data set, and the symbol for money supply is just M1. Okay. So we can go back. We don't need this anymore. We use this. Okay, so if you go back to your FRED data or your Federal Reserve economic data, search for M1. That's going to give you M1. So make sure here's M1, but know that you're doing monthly data. So you don't want weekly because that's going to be the wrong frequency. Look for M1 and monthly. It doesn't really matter which one you use. I'll just use monthly in seasonally adjusted. So here's what you're going to use. So if you hit the max button, and I'll see here that there's like a sharp jump in 2020. That's because the way the metric was calculated was adjusted slightly. And this metric used to include only cash and checking accounts, and they started including savings accounts here. So the big jump is due to the fact that the way it was calculated was adjusted. So this is a little bit misleading, but that explains that big jump. It's not some anomaly. It's the fact that the way that the metric was recorded was changed to include some other stuff, particularly savings accounts. And because of that, you see this big jump. But it's misleading because it's not like all this new money came into the economy, but it was recorded or counted differently. Max. Download. Excel. Okay, so we want the same date range. Right, 7/1/2001 to 7/1/2023. So we got this. Okay, and get changes in the money supply. It's just the change, right? And so we're assuming that any change is unexpected, again, because of the way the theory is set up. So starting in P3, you can do equals O3 minus O2. So any change is unexpected. You can calculate the changes by just applying this formula down all the way to July. So we've got unexpected changes in the money supply all the way down, and there's one that's like really high because they changed right here. See how it's like goes from 4,000 to 16,000, and it's not going to mess anything up because there's enough observations. But it's a if you look there, it looks like there's a mistake in the data. It isn't, because the Fed started recording more things into the data set. So just kind of assume that isn't this change is not represent. This is kind of a outlier and not representative of what happened overall. Okay, looks like stop highlighting my. So we're getting the PRS&P, PR Pfizer, PR J&J, and then inflation. We got DM1. So the last thing we have to get is HPI, which is the home price index. Okay, so if you just search for like index, usually that's one of the most popular ones, I think. Um, S&P Case-Shiller U.S. National Home Price Index. That looks good. Okay. Home prices over time. Let's do max. This is monthly, so download. Excel. And we want the same date range we've been using, which is going to start in 7/1/2001. And looks like I remember this being before. This one's a little bit slower to record. So it only goes to 6. So we're going to have to cut down our date range to 6. Just 1 month, no big deal, but that's what we'll do. Okay, so I'm going to copy and paste this into the home price index. But like I just said, it's going to go from 7/1/2001 to 6/1/2023. So we're going to have to cut off one more observation, which is July, and that's because not all the variables go to that range. So let's just cut it off and use the same date range for all. Okay, so we got this. Okay, and then to get home inflation, it's just like regular inflation, but now we're looking at home indices. So if this is the index, average index of prices, if that goes up or if that changes, that's home inflation. So every time the average index goes up, that's a proxy for inflation. So for home inflation, you just want continuously compounded return from 1 month to the next. So the natural log of Q3 divided by Q2 times 100. And you can apply that down. Okay, so here's home inflation. And then unexpected changes in home inflation is your last thing. So starting here, because you got to have two home inflations to do a change in home inflation, you would just do the change, R4 minus R3. So any change 1 month to the next is unexpected. Okay, so up to June, we have home price index. We have the inflation, and we have the change in inflation. So this is really what, before we do the analysis, this is what your data set should look like. And you're going to use this to run some analysis for the capital asset pricing models and the arbitrage pricing theory model as well. Okay, so I got data from July 1, 2001 to June 2023. The variables we need are these excess return ones, and then the unexpected changes in these macro variables. So what I like to do is set up another tab with just the values, and then set them up as such so you can run CAPM for both, and then an arbitrage pricing theory model for both as well. Okay, so why don't we set this up here, and I'll show you kind of what we're doing. So if you look, not going to include row 2 for July or row 3 for August because that has some variables that are not, you don't have enough observations because we had to get some changes of changes. I'm going to grade that out. Okay, and so see, we had to cut down a little bit on the newer ones because we didn't have home inflation, home indexes. Now we have to cut down on a couple of the older ones because we got to have at least 2 observations. So you can't have these NAs. So our final data set is going to go from August, September 2001 to June 2023. So we got about 260 observations, which should be plenty. Okay, so let me set up this date range over here. 9/1/2001 to 6/1/2023. So I'm going to copy and paste my date range. 9/1/2001 to 6/1/2023. Okay, then I want the excess returns of Pfizer, excess returns of the S&P. So I'm setting up here I like to put it in little groups so it's easy to do the analysis for the capital asset pricing model for both and then the arbitrage pricing theory model for both. So if you copy and paste just the values from your previous data spreadsheet, just data tab, all the variables you need. So I need the ERS&P starting in 9/1/2001. If I copy it and I just paste values only, like paste values, it'll be a lot easier for Excel to work with because you're not jumping back and forth with the formulas. Okay, and I'm also going to paste it. Sorry, was that the wrong thing? That was the wrong thing. Okay. I'm going to paste ERS&P in the right spot here as values only. Also here. Like all right, let me reopen this spreadsheet because it's Okay, here we go. All right, so I left off trying to paste ERS&P. Try that again. Okay. Also going to paste it here. Okay, and then I'm going to paste the ER Pfizer in the appropriate spot, and then the ER Johnson & Johnson. Okay, so that's 2.3 and 1.8. All right, then I'm going to paste inflation or de-inflation, the appropriate tab. DM1. And then the D home inflation. Okay, and I also need the ER Pfizer, the ER S&P, and the other ones here as well. So I could just put those here. Okay, and I can put these ones here. Okay, so if you're following along and trying to set it up as such, you're trying to have a little workbook sheet that has data set up in a group for the capital asset pricing model for Pfizer, capital asset pricing model for Johnson Johnson or your two stocks, and then a little model for one of your stocks for the arbitrage pricing theory, and the final section for the arbitrage pricing theory for your other stock. Right? And each one should have the same number of observations from 9/1/2001 to 6/1/2023. So you see all my observations go to row 263. Okay, now let me show you how to do the analysis. And there's basically um, four different analyses and four different results areas you're gonna analyze. I'll do the capital asset pricing model for Pfizer first. what I'm going to do is yeah, get rid of these ones because we're going to have different ones. Okay, so yeah, all these are just values only, right? And I'm gonna run the capital asset pricing model. The first one, which is for Pfizer. You'll do this for your first stock. You should have a date, excess return for the stock, and excess return for the S&P. And I'm gonna do tab and data analysis, and regression, and then OK. The Y range is uh, the excess returns for this first stock, okay, which would be B1 to B263. The X range is the excess returns of the S&P, so C1 to C263. Okay, and if you choose the labels box, that's going to give you name for your variables. All right, so Y range is B1 to B263, and C1 is C1 to C263, and this is checked. Make sure that you might not have the same range as me, but make sure both Y and X have the same number of, they both should go to 263 or whatever and have the same number, the same range. Okay, and then hit OK. Okay, so this is, I'm going to call it on this tab or this sheet, tab M for Pfizer, tab M PFE. Okay, and what you see, you're probably going to see is that your variable is significant, right? Pretty high t-stat, pretty low t-value. That's 3.24 times e to the negative 22, so that's 0.0000. And here's your beta coefficient for the ERS&P. Okay, so this is the beta for Pfizer. Okay, and this would tell me something like, or would tell me exactly that if you did 0, 0.74 close enough minus 1. Okay, so that tells me that Pfizer stock is roughly 26% less volatile than the market. Okay, we see that? So take the coefficient, the ER/SMP for your whatever CAPM you did. That's your beta, and take the beta and do one to the beta and subtract one, and that'll tell you if it's more or less volatile than the market. If it's less volatile. If it's greater than one, it's more volatile. So in this case, based on the negative 26, Pfizer's stock was roughly 26% less volatile than the market average. Okay, so so questions so far? Yeah, I know you might have to go home and do your analysis still, but questions on how to get the results for the capital asset pricing model. So we have a CAPM for Pfizer. I'll do another CAPM for the other stock, and then I'll do the arbitrage pricing theory for both. And then you got to uh, provide your results and talk about it a little bit, what you found. But got the capital asset pricing model for Pfizer, and that's how you would interpret it for the beta. Okay, and then let's look at do the other one. I'm going to run the capital asset pricing model for Johnson & Johnson using the same methods. Okay, so I'm going to do data tab, the analysis, regression. Okay, Y range is now F1 to F263. The X range is G1 to G263. So the Y is the excess returns for Johnson & Johnson. The X range is the excess returns for the S&P. Again, make sure they both go from one, both have the same number of observations. F263, so F1 to F263, and G1 to G263. This is checked. I hit OK. Okay, and then this is my CAPM for Johnson & Johnson. And here is my beta for Johnson & Johnson, which we need to talk about. And all we have to do is subtract 1 from this. Because it's less than 1, that's going to mean that this stock was also less volatile than the market average based on its beta. So 0.58, I'll round up. 0.59 minus 1. So that means that Johnson & Johnson stock was about 41% less volatile and the market average. Okay, so that's how you would do the analysis for the capital asset pricing models for both stocks that you choose. That's how you would interpret it. And when you put in your little paper, you would include a screen cap of results, and you can talk about briefly if your stock was more or less volatile compared to the market. The coefficient or the beta in this context is bigger than 1, to be more volatile, and if it's less than 1, like my two were, it's going to be less volatile. Okay, so why don't we do now? The arbitrage pricing theory model for each. So it's the same thing, except we're now including these unexpected changes in macro variables, which are for inflation, the money supply, and then the change in home inflation. So I'm going to run this y, and then all these x variables. So we're adding some macro variables in addition to the cap m, because we know that this explains something given the high stat. Okay, and then this also explains something given its high t stat. So we want to see, if in addition to just the market index, other macro variables can also explain our stock, in particular, unexpected changes in macro variables. Okay, so if you got it set up like I do here, you can do data tab, data analysis, regression. Okay, our Y range is J1 to J263. Our X range is all of these together. K1, K263, and labels is checked again. So see how it's just Y range is the stock excess returns. The X range includes beta 1, changes in inflation, M1, and home inflation. So all of these, but see how this has 4 variables in the X range, but it's got the same range. They both go from 1 to 263. So if you have it set up like mine, Y range J1 to J263, and X range K1 to N263. Okay? So this one is the arbitrage pricing theory for Pfizer. Let's see what we found here. All right, so unfortunately, this one, your S&P is significant again because the p-value is really low, the t-stat's really high. If you look at these ones, t-stats are less than 2, absolute value, and the p-values are bigger than 0.05-ish, or I mean, they're way bigger than they should be. But you just look at the t-stats for comparison, and if any of the t-stats aren't bigger than 2, the absolute value, that's going to tell you that these variables are not significant and don't explain any additional information about the variable. So We could say something like, so here's the t-stats. And we're looking at them for the new macro variables, these three. Those t-stats were here. We put them in a separate little area. So we're talking about this area, or these t-stats. So because all of these are less than 2, so like what I mean is like 0.3 is less than 2, 0.18 is less than 2, and 1.3. So they're not high enough to, they're not higher than the critical t. They're not significant. So that means that the data in the relationship isn't strong enough to confirm these have some effect on the excess returns of the stock. So what we conclude from this result is that um, unexpected changes in inflation, the money supply, and the home inflation did not explain um, advisors' excess returns from whatever this period was, from 2001 to 2023. Okay, so that's the conclusion, and the beta is the same as before. You did that in the previous example, but you're looking at if you can also use these other macro variables interpreted as unexpected changes to explain the stock. That wasn't the case here because the t-stats were too low and the p-values were too high. Okay? So I concluded that expected changes in inflation, the money supply, and home inflation did not explain Pfizer's excess returns in 2001 to 2023. Right? Now, if you do this, your t-stats are bigger than 2 in absolute value, you will have something to interpret. And so if that's the case, then interpret the changes as such. So I'll just assume this is the case. You do get t values that are big enough, absolute value, then you got to mention or just discuss briefly that they are significant and what the effect was on the stock. Okay, so one more. Let's do the arbitrage pricing theory for Johnson & Johnson. So data tab, data analysis, regression. Okay. The Y range is Q1 Q263, and the X range is R1, U63, so all the X variables. Labels is checked. The Y range is Q1, Q263, and X range is R1, U263. Okay, here's my final one. This is the arbitrage pricing theory for Johnson & Johnson. So again, these stats weren't even close. The p-values were too high. And so it doesn't look like any of these things explain either of these big pharma stocks. We kind of do the same result where so just into and okay, so same deal. Unexpected changes in inflation, money supply, and home inflation not explain Johnson & Johnson's excess returns from 2001 to 2023. Okay, so that's the bulk of the analysis behind the first project. You're going to collect data. You two already picked your stocks, so that's the first step. You're going to collect data from the appropriate date range that you can get all your variables. So most likely 9/1/2001 to 6/1/2023, unless your stocks aren't old enough, but I think they are. So that's probably your range. Then you want to get stock data. You get the stock data each S&P, and then the risk-free rate, which is GS1M from the Federal Reserve data. They get the returns for each and the excess returns. You can collect data for consumer price index, calculate inflation, and then changes in inflation. You can collect data for M1, get changes in that, and home inflation or home price index, the Case-Shiller. Home inflation, which is just changes in the home price index from one period to the next, and then changes in that. Right? And then these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 variables are what you need for your analysis, where you can do, instead of kind of like mine, a little section for your CAPM for one stock, CAPM for the other, and then arbitrage pricing theory for one, and then arbitrage pricing theory for the other. You should have some results like this, a couple CAPMs to interpret, and then a couple arbitrage pricing theories to interpret. So all of these results would go into your little project, and then you can talk about those in your analysis. Okay, so goal here is to choose two stocks and perform a CAPM analysis, compare and contrast your results. So that's what I showed you there. And do an arbitrage pricing theory with the two stocks, compare and contrast your results. Just put some, popular sections in a research paper. You don't have to use all these. You could have an abstract if you want, just a summary of what you found. If you use outside literature, make sure you reference the literature or talk about it. Or probably just put something on what capital asset pricing model is, who discovered it, what it means, and then also for this one, you can just mention where you got your data. You could mention what you found in your analysis in the four regression results. Okay, put a couple tables. So basically 4 tables, one table for each result. Then if you found anything, enlightening, you can talk about that. Were your stocks more volatile or less? What's that mean? And were you able to find something for the macro variables? So did any of the macro variables any impact on the stocks you chose? And then any references, just list those in some proper reference form. And you're not looking at too long of a research paper. I said roughly 5 pages. That's including references and tables. So the main thing is getting the analysis and talking about that. Okay. So any questions? Now, I know you might have questions later if you start doing it and have some questions on doing the data, collecting the data, and so on, and what to discuss. Up to this point, if you have any questions on what I want you to do and what you need to do for this project, because it is due 1 week from tomorrow, so September 15th. Both of you are good up to this point on good on what to do for the project. And so I'll put this here. So I can schedule office hours by request. I'll just set up. I don't have an office on campus, but I can set up a little meeting, and we can pick a time that works for both of us. If you need office hours, we can set up a meeting, and then I can look over your results if you need help. So just if you want to schedule office hours, just send me an email, and we can pick a time. But don't wait until okay. Yeah, just change to and forward. Oh, great. Okay. Monday. Okay. Monday might work. The evening. You can probably do that. So let me. Probably works. So before I schedule, probably can you just send me an email, and let me double check, and then if everything seems okay, I'll put it in my calendar. But I think that'll work. But okay, great. Send me an email and I'll double check my calendar. Got to. Okay. Any other questions as of now? Before I know you still got some work to do on this, but you're welcome. Okay. All right. So I think you got everything you need to do first project. And if you need some extra office hours or some extra help, we can do that. But I think I walked you through the analysis and how to interpret it. So get started on your project and see how much you can get done. And if some issues come up, I can try to help you on that. All right, so sound good? Anything else for today that we need to cover? Okay. All right, let's wrap it up then. And email me if you need some help, and I'll try to look for that email, and we'll schedule office hours for next week, and I can help you a little more with your project. Right, great. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the meeting, but thanks for joining. I hope that was helpful, and I hope you enjoy doing the project, and I'll look forward to seeing your projects and working with you if you need some help. All right, so thank you.